Cameroon, and it's my honor to be your host this evening. Just a few ground rules before we start. Note that this session will be recorded. Please, all participants, keep your mics muted and your cameras off. Only our presenter can show us her camera. During the course of the presentation, you can put all your questions on the chat and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our presenter, Liz Jordan, who will tell us all about what this citizen developer product from the PMI is about. So Liz is the marketing and operational readiness lead for PMI Citizen Developer. And she's been working to create and build the PMI CD community through engaging content, ranging from blogs to interviews to interactive webinars. Her role is centered on providing the community with the content they need on their citizen development journey. So welcome, Liz, and over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk with all of you about Citizen Developer. And I appreciate that introduction. I think it nicely captured what I've been working on for the past several months with PMI. And it's really about growing the citizen development movement and fostering a community via content. So my plan for today, I'm going to walk through a presentation, but I definitely want to make sure to leave time for Q&A at the end. So I'll try and keep an eye on the chat, but if I miss anything too, we'll just come to Q&A at the end. I'll go through it and we'll just kind of dive right in. So I am actually going to share a few slides. I'll go ahead and pull those up. Okay, I think everyone should be able to view the slides now. So I'll turn off my camera as I'm going to be looking the other direction. I don't want everyone just looking at the side of my face. Feels a bit impersonal. So I'll go ahead and dive right in. So as I mentioned, we're with today, there's a couple of things I wanted to cover as it relates to citizen developer. I think it's given people tend to have different levels of exposure to citizen development and the low code, no code movement. Find it's always helpful to start with some of the basics. And then as I give the basics, I think what's always helpful for people is to hear more about citizen development in action. So what does it look like within an organization, kind of how it actually works. So I'll play a short video for you from Donna Sarkar of Microsoft, then talk about the role of PMI, give you an overview of what the PMI citizen developer products look like and how you can get involved. And of course, like I said, I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So the basics. Kind of, I guess, starting at the very beginning. So what is citizen development? So citizen development really refers to the ability for the user or the citizen developer to create applications without coding experience. So it's ability to use either a low-code platform, which requires a minimal level of coding knowledge, or a no-code platform, which really requires no coding expertise in order to build applications at a significantly faster and at a fraction of the cost of traditional software development. So how does it work? The low-code and no-code platforms are continuously evolving, and they're becoming more and more advanced. So that's now sophisticated enough to generate code based on visual inputs and diagrams put together by a typical business user. So if you think of like a drag and drop functionality to build a website, you know, what you used to have to code using Java or C++, now you can do on a tool like Squarespace, you're able to just drag and drop and build the website without any coding knowledge. So kind of why is it important? So it enables the general workforce to create complex automated and systemized workflow processes. So instead of having to rely on IT to build you a business application or something like that, you're now able to do it yourself. The end user, or the one who's actually going to be using the application in their day-to-day job, is able to build the application. And as mentioned, one of the key benefits of this is that it's a hyper agile way of working. So there's substantial reductions in the cost and development times. So the idea at which you can take an idea to a formal application that's in use is a fraction of the amount of time. So it's also one that you might have heard of some of these, the no-code or low-code platforms. And there's consistent, like I said, this is a growing area with new entrants consistently emerging and some of existing players refining their offerings. So when you think of some of the bigger names like Microsoft, they have their no-code platform Power Apps, or AppSheet, which was recently acquired by Google, or some of the other ones, maybe a Webflow, Betty Blocks, TrackVia. And with these these platforms, the features and functionality may vary. So what we like to say is there's kind of no standard solution for an organization. The right no-code or low-code platform for your organization is really going to be dependent on the type of problem that you're trying to solve. And I think it's always good, I like to see it in kind of numbers in the direction of the citizen development movement. And there's a few that I just want to call out here. And one of them is that 86% of IT decision makers say the biggest challenge to digitally transform their business is the shortage of software developers. So what citizen development as a practice is doing is really addressing that shortage by allowing each business user to develop their own application. And then I think it's also interesting to see towards the middle here, the statistic from Microsoft, that they expect 500 million new apps to be built in the next 5 years, with 450 of those being built using a low-code or no-code tool, which is incredible when you think of the scale of it. And then too, we're asking companies, where are they in their citizen development journey? And I think this is a very telling statistic that 91% of companies at this point are already either using low-code, no-code, or considering using low-code, no-code. So, the adoption rate dramatically going up. So I think it's always good, like I said, I wanted to dive in to see citizen development in action. And what I'm going to do now is just play a short video for you with Donna Sarkar from Microsoft, who's talking about citizen development in action at Starling Bank. So let's dive right in. Just give me 1 second. And give a shout if for any reason the audio is not working here. It should be fine, but let me go ahead and press play.
Long time. I do believe it's in the early phases. What's really helping, though, are internal citizen dev academies. So this was a concept that I learned about maybe a year and a half ago. So I went to, there are 3 companies that really stand out in this area where they've built their own citizen devs academy in-house to train up their existing staff. So existing people from all over the company, whether they have a tech background or operations background, legal, finance, whatever background they come from. So one is Schlumberger, which is, of course, in like 13 countries all over the world. Second one is GSK, who does pharmaceuticals in the UK. And the third one is Sterling Bank in Lagos, Nigeria. So quite global. And all of these 3 businesses had a very passionate person, like one strong advocate in-house. And they really believed in the power of citizen development and using the Power Platform. So they learned this, and then they started solving business problems that had plagued their organization for years. So in Sterling Bank's example, the citizen dev who started it all, her name was Foyen Olajide Bello. So she worked in the IT department. She was an InfoPath Forms form over data expert. She's not a software engineer by trade. And the bank brought her a business problem. They said, Foyen, we have 167 bank branches all over Nigeria. And the process is this right now, when we want to move money from the vault to an ATM. So everyone who works at these branches, when they're moving money, they go and write it down in an Excel spreadsheet. They're like, my name is, this is the date, my name is this, here's how much money I moved. save. So every bank branch, 167 branches, had their own Excel spreadsheet. At the end of the week, their job was to mail their own Excel spreadsheet to the central CFO's office. And there's some poor person in the CFO's office whose job it is to consolidate all of these 167 Excel spreadsheets and make sure that the amount of money they have left in the vault is the amount of money this thing equates to. This is not a fun job. And there's always error, always issues. People have overwritten their Excels. Someone forgot to send one. It was just like fraught with issue. So Foyan was asked to solve this problem. So at first she's thinking, how do we do this? And she looks up info paths, she looks up forms, all the tools she knows. And then she discovers this thing called Power Apps. So she, in a day, built a Power App, just a form with a SharePoint backend, which was also something they used in the company. And people were able to just input their information. They said, I'm in bank branch X, here's how much I'm moving, etc. Hit submit, it gets saved to the SharePoint. The same central SharePoint. So at the end of the week, she's able to just generate a report of all the transactions from 167 bank branches. This wound up saving them like 60 hours a week at this bank branch. And of course, she's a hero. People are like, this is amazing, Foyan. How'd you do this? This is magic. You didn't even code. She said, I'm not a coder, so I didn't code. Then next thing you know, all these departments are bringing her problems. HR brings a problem, finance brings a problem, legal brings a problem, and she has problems this big. She said, this is not going to work. So she set up the Citizen Devs Academy just at lunchtime on Fridays.
So I'll pop that there. I think that is just always helpful though, when you were talking about what a real life example of citizen development in action looks like, to kind of hear it straight from a real world example. So with that, let me just dive back into our presentation. So, kind of what is the role of PMI in all of this? So we kind of talk about it using a bit of a car analogy. So at one end, you have the car itself. And in this analogy, that would be the low code, no code technology. So, you're thinking your app sheet, your Power Apps, your Track Via. And you need a driver. So that would be the business user or the individual that is creating the app. But what you also need are the safety manual, the rules of the road, the governance structures in place. And that's the role that PMI is really trying to fill. What they're doing is they have created the methodologies and best practices that allow a company to kind of safely implement citizen development. I think you kind of think of the idea, I'm sure many of you have had a negative experience with shadow IT, where individuals were out just kind of building side spreadsheets or Excel files or kind of applications that weren't really sanctioned by IT, and it can become a real mess, especially if that individual leaves. There's risks related to data security. What citizen development is, though, when implemented using the PMI methodology, it ensures that the right governance structure is in place so that the IT team is part of the process. I think of an example of citizen development being implemented. It was actually a use case that was presented at Amtrak. And, their IT department was completely overwhelmed with large scale systems issues, systems integration issues that needed to be implemented. And they didn't have time to get into kind of the average business user case. It was things that were very critical to maybe that specific business user, but weren't enterprise level. So they just kept staying at the end of the backlog. So an individual there, Serena Ankari, came forward and she said, I want to implement citizen development. I want to be able to empower the average business user. And IT kind of said, I don't know, that doesn't necessarily sound a good idea. How do we control risk? How do we mitigate risk? And she kind of started with well, what about if I only use applications that are already on our desktop? So I'm only going to use Power Apps because Power Apps has been sanctioned by IT as being kind of a secure model. So that's what we're kind of talking about. PMI helps you implement with the right structures and governance in place to reduce risk. So I think it's kind of the idea is the PMI bridges the gap between what low code, no code allows individuals and enterprises to do and the need for best practices, standards, and governments. And PMI citizen developer products give the IT department the confidence to enable business users to build their own solutions and capitalize on CD. So it's enabling the CIO IT function to manage the risk. Thinking about how does PMI do this, and what are some of the products that are part of this PMI Citizen Developer Suite? So there are kind of three main elements of that we have that I'll touch on: the Citizen Developer Foundation course, the Citizen Developer Practitioner course, and then also Business Architect and Strategist. Foundation and Practitioner have already been released and are available to enroll today. We have the Citizen Developer Partner Program, which is a program for delivery organizations to build maturity capabilities and low-code, no-code vendors to become part of the PMI ecosystem. And then we have our content and community. So we have the Citizen Developer Handbook, which I think you can best equate to the like PMBOK, body of knowledge, but for citizen developer. And then we also have our community, which includes video series, blog insights, Q&A, resources, case studies, thought leadership, upcoming events, and webinars. So going into, oh, I'm sorry, does someone have a question, or is just not on mute? Okay, I'll keep going then. For Citizen Developer Foundation, who is this kind of targeted towards? This is really for all individuals and businesses and organizations or students. And what this is really about introducing the concept of citizen development, learning the benefits and the role of citizen developers in today's business world. It's a 90-minute course where you would earn 2 PDUs. And it's, again, really geared towards people who are new to the concept, to give you a base to then kind of delve deeper into your citizen developer career. Then we have CD Practitioner, and this is the other course that is currently live. And this course is really intended, we say it's for the doers. So it is for the individuals that would be responsible for building applications themselves. So it might be subject matter experts in marketing, operations, finance, or business analysts. And what you do is you learn how to apply the citizen developer methodology to build safe and scalable applications that improve internal and external operations. So, kind of here, what you'll be able to do after the end of the course is apply the software delivery process tailored to CD initiatives. You can assess and track the risks and requirements of your project and develop stakeholder and communication management plans, and also avoid the most common application design pitfalls in designing the data model and user experience. So again, this is for the individual who would be responsible for building the applications itself. So in the example that Donna walked us through with Starling Bank, this would be an example of Florian would be a CD practitioner herself. Then CD Business Architect, which we expect to launch in November of this year, is actually more for the people that would be responsible for program or portfolio managers. So it might be enterprise and IT architects, team leaders, IT managers, kind of the individuals that would be responsible for potentially leading a group of CD practitioners or kind of managing a wider team. And this course will get into, again, more about how to facilitate CD projects within an organization and embed the organizational structures that underpin CD operations. And I should clarify too, for both CD Practitioner and CD Business Architect, both of these courses are micro-credentials. So for CD Practitioner, to earn the micro-credential, it is completing the course, which takes about 5 hours, but depends how deep you want to dive into all the side case studies or additional material, and then requires completing and passing a 60-minute exam, in which case you would earn the micro-credential, which you can put on your LinkedIn profile or your CV. So this is just to give you a kind of a snapshot of the practitioner course in particular. So it's an easy to follow learning experience. And one of the things that I particularly like about CD Practitioner is that real use cases are presented throughout. So, throughout, when they talk about a concept, they talk about it in the abstract, the theory of it, and then they apply it to a specific use case. And then there are also downloadable tools and templates. So if as a practitioner following the course, you are then executing your own CD project, using low code, no code, you have these tools at your disposal from the course that you're able to refer back to and use. And then this is the CD Partner Program, just recently launched, and this is more of a B2B commercial wrap. So there's kind of two groups to it. It supports platforms and vendors. So kind of the idea of vendors are able to apply to the partner program and are assessed on a number of different metrics and might reach either silver tier or gold tier. And what this is you can kind of think of it almost as a PMI like stamp of approval that they have met certain specifications or qualifications. So in addition to applying to vendors, it might also apply to consultancies or systems integrators, which they would apply on the basis to confirm that they are delivering citizen development or low code, no code solutions to their clients following PMI's methodologies. So again, this is more of a B2B play, but if you work for a platform or a consultancy or a systems integrator that you think might be interested in applying to be part of the program, that of course is also an option. So kind of touching on how you can get involved in the community. So the community itself is now live and it is on projectmanagement.com/topics/citizen developer. And as I mentioned, the foundation and practitioner courses are also live, which we encourage you to consider taking. And both of those courses are available for purchase on pmi.org/citizen developer. And there you'll be able to view the full course description as well as the breakdown of PDUs and actually get started on the course itself. So that is the main area that I wanted to cover. And I did want to leave, like I said, we have plenty of time for Q&A. So let me take a look at the chat and see if we have any specific questions. So I see one that, how do we envisage no or low code applications developed by users will be managed within enterprise IT governance framework? So I started to touch on this. This is a fantastic question because what many organizations, they can clearly see the benefits of citizen development. I mean, the idea that you shorten development lead time, that there's massive cost savings, you've empowered the user, but they also say, is this risky? Am I going to have rampant shadow IT? And this is where we kind of say, with the right governance structure and framework and those operating models, which are outlined within the handbook, and we'll go into more detail within the practitioner and business architect courses, with the right operating model in place, that gives IT the assurance that it's being done safely and in a scalable way. So, I mean, that is, having the right governance structure is integral to being successful, and being aware of what the right governance structure is as you start on the CD journey, so that can be in place from the beginning. So I see another question. Can you do this course without IT background? And this is absolutely. I think what speaks to citizen developer is that you do not need an IT background at all. If you have an IT background, it's still helpful to understand the concepts that we're talking about. But the beauty of no code is that it truly is, you can build an application with no coding experience at all. So we have members of our team that got started using platforms, both Bubble or AppSheet, who had never even done any coding at all, able to quickly build applications using those programs. And even in my example, I had not taken any coding since must have been about year 10 when I was required to learn Java for a year. I think that was the last time I did any actual coding. And this is completely relevant to me, relevant to my everyday role. And so then what is the cost of the courses? So the foundation course is $79 and the practitioner course is $249. Then I see another question of please share lists of no-code, low-code vendor platforms already certified by PMI. So actually the PMI Partner Program just launched last week before last, just this month. So we have platforms in the process of applying, and they're currently going through the validation and certification process. We actually have a separate tab for the program on our Citizen Developer homepage, which is the second link here, pmi.org/citizen developer. There's a whole partner program section on it. That is where we'll be identifying those partners who have been certified, and as it will be continually updated. So I guess that's one, as we do more of it, encourage you to watch the space. We expect more organizations to be applying. Okay, so I see another question that is, how does this role fit into a scenario where there's either a project manager or scrum master already assigned? So I think one of the ones we want to think about is that citizen developer isn't necessary. It's not a replacement for a project manager, but rather a project manager might use citizen development as a tool and part of their overall toolkit. So if you are a project manager and looking at how you want to achieve a specific outcome, you might look at the project as a whole and say, I wonder if this is an area where citizen development can help me achieve the desired outcome. Is it something that could be deployed to ensure that we achieve or execute this project on budget and on time? So I don't think it's necessarily you would use a citizen developer instead of a project manager, but rather it's a skill set a project manager could develop that would help them in their career as they manage a range of outcomes and projects.
Okay, Liz, while waiting for other questions, from the point of view of a software developer, should they feel threatened by the citizen developer?
That's a good question. It's one we see here a lot is citizen development going to replace traditional IT? And the answer is absolutely not. So the way that we see citizen developers, we know that many organizations, their IT teams are completely overwhelmed, that their backlog far exceeds their resourcing or ability that they have to execute. And in those situations, what you see is that kind of these small business user applications continue to drop to the end of the backlog, while the IT departments need to focus on enterprise level issues. So what Citizen Developer does is it takes those kind of business user applications and takes them off the IT backlog by solving themselves, and then kind of allowing IT to focus on enterprise issues that require deep coding expertise. So when you think of something like making sure, like addressing cybersecurity, data governance, GDPR, that type of thing, that will continue to be the role of IT departments where you need that really deep subject matter expertise. But if it's something like automating an HR process, well, rather than use an IT resource time, that is something that the HR specialist who has learned how to use low code, no code could do themselves. So that's how we kind of see them working hand in hand. But citizen developer is not going to be a replacement for the deep subject matter expertise required for enterprise grade software development. So then I see another question. Do you see this as part of the PMO governance framework within larger organizations as well, like another standard for projects on a smaller scale? So not entirely sure on the second part of that question, but yes, I mean, I think this is definitely within larger organizations. So what we talk about with citizen developer and the operating model is that there's multiple levels of maturity. And as organizations become more mature, there's certain kind of criteria that would mark them transitioning from kind of initial stages or discovery, where they're kind of understanding the idea of citizen development, looking around to see kind of where there might be options, moving into kind of the piloting organization that's testing it, to a full-scale implementation, kind of best in practice. They have all of the governance structures in place, and they've truly optimized citizen development throughout an organization at being the far end of the maturity scale. What we've seen at this point is we have yet to find an organization who is at the far end, like a fully mature organization. But what we see is that many of the organizations have moved past pilot to where they've demonstrated a success, and now they're ready to scale and make sure they have the right governance structures in place for that scaling to be successful.
Okay, and how about this name, citizen developer? Where did it come from?
The name citizen developer? So citizen developer, I think, was just intended to refer to the fact that it is anyone, the average person can be a developer. So, it's not limited to someone who has gone to, has a computer science background or a maths background. You didn't have to do necessarily a coding boot camp or anything like that, but just kind of the average person or the average business user can become a citizen developer. They can build applications themselves. I think what we would like to say of it is it's really kind of the democratization of software development. So, it's no longer just for a certain group, but really anyone can be a part of it. Anyone can be building their own application.
Okay, and just a reminder for the audience, feel free to post your questions on the chat and they'll be answered by Liz. She gave us enough time to ask questions, so feel free to do so. I'll just follow up on your answer, Liz, and talk about security. If everyone is free to build their own software in an organization, how do we ensure that it's safe and secure?
That's a great question, because I think this goes back to the original point that when people think of shadow IT, they think of software or applications that were not secure. They were kind of done off the side. Maybe someone downloaded a tool that wasn't really sanctioned or anything like this. The idea, though, with citizen developer is that IT will be involved in the selection of the right tool. So let's say an organization was trying to decide what platform they wanted to use, that they would then allow their workforce to use to build their own applications. Before it would be deployed to the workforce, IT would make sure to do an assessment and be involved in assessing the security of that platform, assessing that it aligns with the organization's requirements. And depending on what organization you're in, you might have different levels of security required. And then because IT has been involved in that initial process, they're comfortable saying to the organization, well, as long as you build your application using one of these 3 platforms, which we have identified, then we have comfort that it's safe and secure. And I think one of the things I like to highlight too is we talk about a use case with the Dutch National Police. And as you can imagine, Dutch National Police have extremely high security requirements. They're dealing with very sensitive data that if it were leaked poses a massive security risk. So it really needed to be validated that doing citizen development using a tool like Betty Blocks was not going to pose a threat to the organization. And in our conversation with the Dutch National Police, they said it was a hard sell at first. People were very apprehensive that something like a no-code tool could provide that level of security. But when it came down to it and the IT got involved and really just started doing the assessments, they were able to validate that the right guardrails were in place so that they felt comfortable saying, this is the tool that we want you to use if you're going to be building applications. So yeah, by involving IT early on, they can make the right assessment that those applications will be secure and scalable in a safe way. So I see one that we have, the question is, can we have access to the source code of an application developed using CD? I mean, it might be necessary to tweak the software to customize the functionality. So this is actually an interesting point when we talk about the difference between low code and no code. So no code platforms, in order to be at truly no code and ease of use, they typically allow less customizability. And part of that is because it needs to be accessible for the average user. So it really depends on the problem you're trying to solve. So if you need a certain level of editing or customizability for the specific problem you are trying to do, it might be a situation where no code isn't the best solution, but low code, which with a little bit of coding expertise, a little bit of coding input, you can customize the solution. That might be the better option for you. So it kind of depends on what the problem is, but that is kind of as a general rule. In order to keep the true drag and drop or easy functionality, no code might be less customizable, but might be the right choice depending on your user. Like if your user doesn't have any coding expertise, you wouldn't want to expect them to use a low code solution. Whereas if you're like, maybe you are in an IT department and you want to use a low code platform because it allows you to kind of shortcut some of the apps you used to develop, but then you can customize it with coding, that might be the better solution for you. So I guess that's a bit of a non-answer. I'm sorry. It depends on which situation you're in and how that would influence what type of platform you wanted to use. Is it possible to build mobile and tablet apps? Absolutely. That is one. That's actually some of the functionality and how it first started, is the idea that you could use no code to build mobile applications. So certain platforms are even just entirely based on your mobile. So it's building an application. You can do it from your phone, deploy it to your phone, potentially deploy it, list it via an app store, something like that. You just need to look into the right platform to support that. But yes, absolutely, you can build mobile and tablet applications. And I actually, this is a good one, because this is I can give an example of an application that we built for our team specifically, which for our team for marketing and comms, we track a huge number of like stats or articles that we then want to be able to reference in future marketing materials. And we were just doing this via emails, sending it back and forth. And we were just, kind of said, this is a terrible system. It's so inefficient. You're always trying to search through your Outlook to find something. What can we do to make this better? And one of our teams like, well, I think the obvious solution is we build a no-code tool. So using AppSheet, she built what we call our CD marketing repository, and we just store all of the articles and stats in a repository that was built on AppSheet. When you have something you want to add, there's a quick form that you fill in, but then it saves it, it's searchable. And even on AppSheet, there's just the option to immediately, as you're building it, it's quite literally the click of a button to say optimize for mobile. And just like that, you have the application. Now, not only do we have it on our desktops, but I can access it on my phone. So, fantastic. Our team, I'm based in London, but we have team members based in Seattle. So, I would get a question kind of later in the evening. I'm out, don't have, not near my desktop, able to look it up on my phone, quickly answer or send a response. And it was, like I said, as easy as kind of ticking the box to say, make this mobile compatible as well.
Liz, you showed us a slide with many possible low-code, no-code platforms we could use. But
Yes.
what are the things we should be looking for when choosing a low-code, no-code platform?
So choosing the right platform is really dependent on the problem that you are trying to solve. So we actually had a webinar on this. You can find it on our community portal. It's Ruggiero on our team did a full presentation on choosing the right low code, no code platform. And as he walks through it, the starting point always needs to be, what is the problem that you are trying to solve? Because that will dictate and help you prioritize what your requirements are. So he gives the example in that webinar where someone said, we need a radar chart. That is the number one, the application and output of it has to be a radar chart. And right away saying that eliminated 80% of the platforms he was looking at because they didn't have that functionality. And the user had said, that is the most important thing. I have to have this output. So because he had started with the requirement, he was then able to look into the platforms and see what makes the most sense. Now, again, this is going to, depending on your problem, we'll really choose what platform you want to use. So AppSheet is a great example, fantastic platform. And if you are dealing with data that is initially in Excel or like Google Sheet format, fantastic, because it easily translates data from that format into an application. But if you were trying to build a customer portal or a like an e-commerce site, AppSheet might not be the best fit. You need something that's kind of tailored to solving that problem. So that's kind of the first step, is when you are trying to think of what platform you use, is to think of the problem you're trying to solve, prioritize the requirements, and then kind of match those requirements to what the platform itself kind of advertises as its core functionality. But that webinar is available on demand.
So we have another one in the chat.
Yes.
Is it possible to distribute and use no-code, low-code apps developed to users that do not use the no-code platform?
Yeah, so using the example of the like our marketing app. So we had access to all of the back end, could edit everything. We had stakeholders that just wanted to be able to see the front end application. So all we did was give them a link, and it's pretty much like sending someone to any type of portal or data information. They're able to access it. Just looks like any other type of kind of article summary repository. But yeah, you're able to deploy the applications to kind of people that haven't downloaded the platforms. Again, that will depend on the specific platform. If that's a key requirement, you should just validate that that is functionality before starting down that path. But yes, it's possible. Are there any other questions? I know we do have a bit more time, but I've enjoyed the number of questions that have been posed. I hope people have found this presentation useful and as a good introduction. And like I said, if you are completely new to Citizen Developer, I really encourage you to, one, if you just want to start reading about what it is, projectmanagement.com/topic/Citizen Developer. We have an entire section on the page called Real Life Examples or Real Life Use Cases that just highlight all different examples similar to the one that Donna Sarkar from Microsoft shared, where you can see all the different ways Citizen Developer could be used and applied. And that's great to just help you get a sense of the types of problems that you could solve. And the foundation course, it's a 90-minute introduction, very helpful. If you're new to the topic, just to get you oriented and understanding of the benefits of CD and how to start thinking about Citizen Developer and the way it could impact the way you work.
Thank you, Liz. I'm just going to ask a final one. We still have a few minutes, so anyone in the audience can just post a question on the chat. But my final one is, does this work for any kind of industry, or does it only apply where there is IT?
Yeah, no, it is for any type of industry. So that is when we look at the we actually have grouped our use cases. There's a whole series that looks at Citizen Developer across different industry sectors, and we look at Citizen Developer in healthcare, Citizen Developer in government. I'm trying to think, energy, construction. It really, pretty much, if you can think of a business process within your organization that is inefficient, Like maybe it is having to manually fill out a form and then scan it and entering it into a database or anything like that. If there are any processes like that that you think could be automated or made more efficient within your organization, you could probably use Citizen Developer to solve it. So it is truly industry agnostic in that sense. I think it's one that even the most tech forward organizations, they can always find a process or two that could be made more efficient or could be optimized as well. So yes, any industry is going to have elements where CD can help add value. Great. Well, if there are no other questions in the chat, I wanted to just thank again. Thanks for inviting me to present to this group. I really enjoyed the questions from everyone, and I hope to have. Oh, I do see one more. If you've attended the CD practitioner course, bought the book, and have a basic understanding, what would you suggest is the next step? I think the next step is to start developing. So I think it is identifying a problem that you want to solve. And we always encourage people to start small. Think of like a single process that you want to solve. So you can start, and then many of the platforms offer a 14-day free trial or like a limited scale free trial. Start building the application. And I think once you have demonstrated the success, then it's an opportunity to take it to others within your organization. So you can kind of look at how you can scale it, how you can bring it to other areas. But yeah, once you've done the course, it's time to, I think you're ready to get started. So think of that business problem and then start designing the solution to solve it. And then are you going to share the presentation with us? I'm happy, I can provide it to Nelson following this call for distribution. That's not a problem. How many PDUs for the CD practitioner course? 6, I believe.
Okay, so we also have posted the link to the Citizen Developer side in the chat, so you can go there and see more information about the product. And I just want to leave a couple of minutes in case someone has a last minute question, because some are popping up.
How does one claim PDUs after the course? That is
well, as I was.
I'm not sure how I think it follows just the standard PMI process there. So I see, is doing the basic CD good enough to help yourself, or do you have to do the practitioner? So I think what doing Citizen Developer Foundations is good because it helps you understand the context of the overall movement. But practitioner starts to get in, how do you make sure you are doing it in a way that is safe and scalable within your organization? So making sure that you understand the right governance models and frameworks. And I think that's if you are trying to help bring IT on the journey with you and make them realize that it's safe and scalable, practitioner kind of helps you understand in the context needed there. So I mean, you certainly don't have to do practitioner, but I would strongly encourage it.
Right. So it seems every time I try to end the session, new questions come up. So I'm going to wait a little bit and see. Okay, nothing is coming in.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much once more. And this recording will be sent to the emails of those who registered to attend this session. It was really a pleasure to have all of you visit the website and find out more. And you also receive a survey to give us your feedback on this session by email. And really, once more, a big thank you from PMI Africa, and thank you to Liz, thank you to the participants. I wish you a nice evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. And take care and stay safe. We'll leave it open right up until 6 in case people want to post any more questions. But the session is now ended. So thank you to everyone.